What's up, guys? BJ Kissel with SB Nation and Arrowhead Pride, talking about the Kansas City Chiefs' needs on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball after the March 4th day in which Chiefs fans rejoiced as got down to the franchise tag deadline wire. The Chiefs reached 5-year deals with wide receiver Dwayne Bowe and a 5-year deal with punter Dustin Colquitt, and they were able to use the franchise tag on left tackle Branden Albert. So obviously a huge day for the Kansas City Chiefs. In needs on the offensive side of the ball, despite the deal with Dwayne Bowe, it's still a need. Wide receiver is still a need for the Chiefs. They currently have guys in the roster: Devin Wiley, John Baldwin, Dexter McCluster, and then recently signed Marty Gilliard. They all look to be in the mix next season, but when you're looking for a legitimate number 2 wide receiver, I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs still made a move in either free agency or the draft to bring in somebody else to help compete, to give Alex Smith, the new quarterback, that for all intents and purposes is going to be traded once March 12th comes around, and be the Kansas City Chiefs starting quarterback next season. You want to surround that guy with weapons. So another need is the tight end position. Kevin Voss retired. Tony Moriaki looks to be the starting tight end next season. If you guys have had a chance to check out Herbie Teoch's article from a few weeks ago, talking about Andy Reid and the importance and the value placed on tight ends in his offense and what he expects them to do. It's a great read and tells you a lot about his system. I had a chance to watch quite a bit of the Eagles when I was doing my case for Nick Foles, and they don't use a lot of double tight end formations, and knowing we do have a starter, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a top 2 or 3 need for the Chiefs, but it is something I see them addressing. When I was down in Mobile covering the Senior Bowl, I saw a Chiefs personnel guy talking with Colorado tight end Nick Casa after practice one day, so obviously there's going to be a connection for me to Nick Casa, who looks to be a mid to late round pick as a tight end. And another position that needs to be addressed is either center or just interior offensive line. Ryan Lilger retired, who played left guard, moved over to center when Rodney Hudson got hurt. And Rodney Hudson is a huge question mark. Obviously went down after the New Orleans Saints game in Week 3 with a leg injury, which former head coach Romeo Crennel had said was basically a broken bone in his leg, and that he needed to be off it. And we haven't heard a whole lot about Rodney Hudson, and it's a huge question mark going into next season because Hudson was probably one of my favorite picks in that draft, knowing he was the top-rated center prospect, or one of the top-rated center prospects that year, and was a guy that you really thought was going to develop and take over the center position for a long time. Obviously a new coach and new scheme coming in, you don't know how they would feel about him or how he's doing. So center and interior offensive line is really a position the Chiefs are going to need to address at some point. Jeff Allen struggled quite a bit last season. John Asamoah didn't struggle, one of the better young offensive guards in the NFL, but bringing in a guy, either investing in a high pick or bringing in a veteran could start right away at either center or one of the interior guard spots opposite John Asamoah is going to be very important for the Chiefs heading into next season. Another spot, the number 2 running back. Obviously, there was a lot of hope and faith being brought into Peyton Hillis last season. Didn't really turn out the way that probably anybody expected or wanted, but we've got Cyrus Gray. He'll be the second-year running back out of Texas A&M that showed flashes, had a little bit of injury concern last year, so we didn't really get to display what he's able to do. Sean Drone's going to be in the mix too, but don't be surprised if the Chiefs go out and draft another guy or pick up a flyer on a veteran free agent running back to be in the mix as well. And then obviously quarterback, expect the Chiefs to draft somebody somewhere in the draft. The picks that we have right now aren't necessarily the picks that we're going to have. Expect the Chiefs to move around at least a little bit and expect them to target a quarterback in this draft that they feel like they can develop and be the long-term option for the Chiefs down the road. And, guys that could be available later in the draft, Zach Dysert out of Miami could be around, depending upon how far Tyler Wilson falls, he could be around, or E.J. Manuel, if he falls, he could be around in the 3rd round range where the Chiefs might be looking at drafting a quarterback. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the biggest need, number 2 cornerback, recently wrote a post on D. Milliner, the cornerback from Alabama, that looks to be the top-rated cornerback at his position, and the Chiefs need somebody opposite Brandon Flowers to play that spot. I've said for a while that I think that there are a lot of good options in free agency for cornerbacks, and that's where I expect the Chiefs to go out and get the guy to play opposite Brandon Flowers. And now that the market's pretty well flooded with free agent corners, you wouldn't necessarily think that you would have to overpay or spend a lot of money to get one because there are so many available. So that's going to be something to look forward to as we approach free agency. Also, Tyson Jackson's situation. I think, the key to the offseason was what was going to happen with Branden Albert, and now that that has been addressed, I think the next kind of domino to fall that kind of sets off all the other pieces are they able to reach some sort of restructure extension with Tyson Jackson? Much has been made about his cap number next season being over $17 million, and that there's just, I think, a $2.5 million cap hit in dead money if he's cut. So that's a situation to kind of watch for heading into free agency is are they able to keep Tyson Jackson? Because if not, Tyson Jackson and most likely Glenn Dorsey leaving opens two defensive end spots that really need to be addressed from the Chiefs. Chris Canty was brought in on a visit, hasn't signed anywhere. Adam Teicher recently said that the Chiefs aren't out of the mix for him, but it isn't a situation where Chris Canty would be anything more than a rotational player. Get a few of those guys to rotate in and out. Sean Smith, Rapati Pito Atua, Bailey is a guy that's going to be in the mix and has to be at least considered with the new scheme coming in. You never know how he might fit into there. And then the strong inside linebacker position is also going to be one of the huge needs for the Chiefs. And a guy that I really like there is Brad Jones. I've talked about him before. He played with Green Bay last season, so new general manager John Dorsey is going to be familiar with him. He was originally set up as an outside linebacker, and because of some injuries to the inside guys with Green Bay last season, was basically forced to go in and play inside and did really well. He's very athletic, did very well from having never played that spot. He's 6'3", 242 pounds, so he has great size for that position. Isn't your prototypical thumper, but is a three-down guy. Wouldn't have to come off in passing situations as athletic as he is, and the way the NFL is going with throwing the ball all around the field, Brad Jones would be a great fit, and obviously there's a familiarity there. Kind of an under-the-radar guy. A lot of people are talking about Dannell Ellerbe, the free agent inside linebacker from the Ravens, but Brad Jones is a guy that I think that if we signed, it would just make everybody would say, well, that makes a lot of sense. He fits a need. He's going to cost a ton of money, and John Dorsey is familiar with him, and he brings a lot of versatility. And if we also draft somebody late in the draft that can play that position as well, maybe an AJ Klein or a Kiko Alonso that maybe aren't ready to start right away. If there's an injury to one of our outside linebackers, either Tamba Ali or Justin Houston, then Brad Jones could switch out there and play that spot, and then you bring in the young guy to play the strong inside linebacker position, and therefore you've created some versatility, some depth, and you've also protected yourself against injury. So I think that's a great plan. And then obviously the safety position has to be addressed. Whoever's going to play opposite Eric Berry. We've got Kendrick Lewis there, who had a couple of down years. The Chiefs signed Hussein Abdullah. They've got Kyle McCarthy, who they had signed last year, that was on IR all year. It's going to be in the mix. Tyson Hartman actually played pretty well for an undrafted free agent out of Kansas State last season. A lot of people are talking about the free agents, the big guys, William Moore, Ed Reid, Charles Woodson. Are all the big name guys that everybody's going to be talking about. And then guys in the draft like Eric Reid, Matt Elam, Jonathan Cyprien, TJ McDonald, and DJ Swearinger are guys that a lot of people have been talking about leading up to the draft, knowing that safety is a position that the Chiefs need to address. So, those are the needs I see right now for the Chiefs in kind of a nutshell, in positions the Chiefs need to address. How they address those positions in free agency will obviously affect the draft, but look for the Chiefs to address those positions, between here and next season. For Arrowhead Pride and SB Nation, I'm BJ Kissel.